Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the upcoming edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined today by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome, guys.
How you doing?
Dave.
Pretty good. All kinds of action happening locally with respect to COVID vaccination out there. There's a buzz and lots of people are talking about what's next. So let's just dive right in, Thad, and tell us a little bit about the status of what's going on in our community with COVID news.
A lot of things changing. Yesterday the state moved Humboldt County into its orange COVID risk tier, which means that different businesses can open at increased capacities, and some new ones that have previously been closed in the purple tier and red tier can now reopen. For instance, bars can reopen to outdoor service again. And then at the same time, some state guidelines are coming into place for outdoor events. So sporting events, outdoor concerts, things like that. And then also indoor events will come online in April 15th, so about a week away. And then there's also new guidelines for private gatherings and stuff like that. So a lot of things are going to change in this week and next, as far as things kind of opening up and kind of shifting a little bit more toward that normal we're all craving for.
Right on. So that shift that you described to the orange status is in part or in full, I guess, related to the changing test results and case counts that have gone down as a percentage basis. Do you want to just share a little bit of that about how things are looking on that front?
Yeah, so it's actually due to two factors. One is, yes, that our numbers had been kind of trending down toward the orange even last week. But then the state on Tuesday hit the benchmark of vaccinating 4 million people in socioeconomically disadvantaged zip codes, which was a goal that Governor Newsom set. And once the state hit that goal, it automatically triggered kind of an increase in thresholds for the risk tiers that we're so accustomed to hearing about. And so Humboldt County, and it's retroactive, so it goes back into effect for the last few weeks. And so while last week our numbers in Humboldt were orange, the 2 weeks before that previously had been in the red tier, or across the red tier threshold. But retroactively, those got moved because the thresholds changed to orange. And so all of a sudden, instead of waiting another week or two and kind of looking at those test results, all of a sudden we're in orange, and we'll be here for at least 3 weeks before the state reevaluates again.
Right on. So there's that general trend that you just described, but also parallel to that is the availability of vaccines in our community. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's ramping up and what it's going to look like over the next availability for folks and eligibility over the next few weeks?
Yeah, so eligibility is expanding hugely. It's already been opened up to everybody over the age of 50, as well as folks with underlying medical conditions, age 16 to 49. And then next week, it will open up to everybody 16 and older. So it will just be a free-for-all that everybody who has been deemed safe to receive the vaccine, so anybody over 16, is all of a sudden eligible. The trick is it's going to be a while before the allocations and the supply really ramps up to the point where anybody can just go online and make an appointment for sometime this week to get vaccinated. So folks still expect it will be, a couple months out before there's really kind of vaccine on demand, that if somebody just wants to walk into a clinic and get a shot, they can. But nonetheless, it is exciting that they're increasing the eligibility because they anticipate this onslaught of vaccine supply to come in, and they expect supply to, I think, double by this time next month, which is really exciting.
So I heard from another source, I think it was an epidemiologist on Senator McGuire's call, basically that there's talk of having up to 4 million doses a week, I think, available for California broadly, which is a huge number. And I guess Cal Matters. Your cover story, I believe, is a Cal Matters reprint. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what the coverage is saying about statewide vaccination? The next steps of reaching our critical mass of sort of herd immunity goal.
Yeah, definitely. So the up until this point, and really still currently, the concern is supply. It's just like, how do we get enough vaccine to get it into the arms of everybody who wants one? But pretty quickly here in the next month, 6 weeks, people anticipate that concern is kind of going to shift. We're going to have enough supply to reach everybody who wants a vaccine, and then we'll be focusing on the folks who maybe are hesitant to get a vaccine for whatever reason. And the concern there is that, as you said, to reach kind of herd immunity, epidemiologists agree that we need to vaccinate at a very minimum 70% of the population, and likely up to like 85%. And I think it's important for folks to understand that doesn't, currently everybody under 16 is not going to be eligible to get the vaccine for at least some months until it goes through trials for juveniles and it's really deemed safe. So if you take everybody age 16 and below out of the population, I mean, that's probably 25% of the population or close to. So really the push is to vaccinate everybody to get to this level of herd immunity. It's hard to say exactly how that's going to look. In Humboldt County, officials have said that that's not really something they've had to combat because vaccine has been in such scarce supply. But, Humboldt County does have certainly a history of pockets of anti-vaccination folks, or folks who have been vaccine hesitant, as the new buzzword is. And that's, been most apparent with the vaccine laws for schools. Humboldt County had a really disproportionate rate of personal belief exemptions that folks used to be allowed to fill out in order to not get their kids vaccinated. When a new state law went into effect, I think in 2015, requiring that, kind of doing away with that exemption and requiring that unless a kid had a legitimate medical reason not to get a vaccine, they had to be vaccinated in order to attend school. That wreaked havoc in some districts. Some districts prior to that law going into effect had 50% of their students unvaccinated, which is a huge number. Yeah. And so, it's hard to tell how that equates to COVID. It's one thing to opt not to get your kid the polio vaccine or something like that. It's much different when you're in the midst of a pandemic. But certainly, nationwide, we've seen trends of 20+% of people declining vaccines, which is alarming, honestly.
So not to get too into the weeds, because people can check it out themselves in the article, which is available on newsstands and online. But there is a breakdown of the various groups that have this level of reluctance. So you mentioned when it came to childhood vaccinations. In our community, it's as many as approximately 10% of kindergartners were starting school at one point without vaccination. So that gives you like a baseline for our community, household level. But you can break it down by political belief, or you could break it down by racial background. And the chart shows that overall, I think the net number, like you said, is about 20%. But there was a little sign of hope amongst the Black community. People who said they were what's the exact phrase? Definitely opposed. So it was like 35% of Black respondents said definitely opposed just a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. But as things have evolved over the last couple weeks, that's basically cut in half. Mm-hmm. So there's hope that some sort of educational campaign of some kind could be in place. Just one last thing I want to ask you here about that, but also there's the difference between mandates, like childhood vaccination mandates are in place for the most part, with one small exception. Well, not that it's small, but with an exception, versus incentives. Do you want to speak a little bit to that, about the potential for us to try to educate and inform and convince and persuade, and then how we might do that in our community?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the title of the Cal Matters story is, I think is like the carrot, the stick, and the jab or something, and kind of talking about these various factors of how do you get people to get vaccinated. And I think that, I think we're seeing a couple of things. One is the numbers, as you said, especially in the Black community, in Black communities across the country, but really across all demographics, have shifted over the last couple of months, with people being more welcoming of the vaccine, or fewer people being opposed to it. And so I think one thing is, just over time, people are going to get more comfortable with the idea of this vaccination that was, given an emergency authorization, but is fairly new. And I think as friends and relatives start getting vaccinated and they see they're not having adverse reactions and things like that, I think there will be a general warming. So obviously going to be a big public education component to just kind of convincing people that this vaccine is safe. Epidemiologists are also really warning that we're kind of in a race against variants here. That the quicker we can get everybody vaccinated, the greater the chances are that we can stave off kind of the proliferation of some COVID-19 variant that is vaccine resistant, which we're seeing signs of in other places, and is pretty alarming, but hasn't really cropped up in the United States yet. So the quicker we can hit that, herd immunity, the better our chances are that we can just kind of avoid that vaccine averse variant in its entirety. And then, as you said, with the incentives, for instance, the guidelines that I started out talking about in the orange tier, the state is clearly gonna give vaccinated people some leeway that non-vaccinated people aren't going to have. And so, for instance, when okaying events, I think locally folks are really excited for the return of Crabs baseball. Currently, Crabs baseball could start up tomorrow. They could have fans at 30% or 33% capacity. But if they required everybody in the stands to be vaccinated, to show proof of vaccination upon entry, that could increase to 67%. And so I think there's going to be an incentive for a lot of businesses and organizations to do that in order to increase their capacity thresholds, which, makes their bottom line a lot more feasible. And if more and more businesses and organizations are doing that, of saying, if you want to come into our museum, if you want to come to our Crabs baseball game, you need to be vaccinated. That's a natural incentive for residents, too, to say, wow, can't miss that Crabs baseball. I got to go get the vaccine, even if maybe I was on the fence about it before.
It's really important that we get the Crabgrass Band uniformly vaccinated as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Crucial.
Yeah. How much fun is that going to be, going back to that? I can't wait for that day.
Yep. No, I think that's a good message here, is that there's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon, and we really need to stay the course, both to keep infection numbers down, to keep these variants from proliferating, and then also to get as many of us vaccinated as possible so we can all be together in the same place.
Well, right on. Thanks. There's a lot more in the article, and you got your finger on the pulse, so we really appreciate the update. There is another set of articles that we're going to talk about today. David Josiah Lawson's anniversary of his passing. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the articles that you guys are showcasing this week?
Yeah, so we're approaching on April 15th is the 4-year anniversary of David Josiah Lawson's stabbing death in Arcata. And so there's an event planned. His mom, Charmaine Lawson, is coming up, as she always does, for the anniversaries. And on April 17th, they're doing a 4-mile run walk benefit, and then a coat drive at on the Arcata Plaza. And we'll definitely be reporting more on kind of what those events are going to entail in the coming days here. So check northcoastjournal.com. But what I'd really like to encourage people to check out is we have what I think is just a really fabulous set of views pieces. One from a local woman, Sharon Fennell, who viewers and listeners might know better as Sista Soul from KHSU. She used to have a show there. But she just tells this wonderful story about forming this really tight bond with Charmaine Lawson that started with them as total strangers. That she and her husband, Mike, just kind of were tugged by something in the Lawson case and decided to go to the preliminary hearing for Kyle Zollner, who was accused of Lawson's murder. And when a judge dismissed the charges against Kyle Zollner, she just kind of described being in the courthouse with a bunch of distraught HSU students. Some of them had been Josiah's friends, and wanting to comfort them and not knowing what to do, but feeling like they didn't have any place to go. So she invited them all back to her house and made them some food and stuff. And so when Charmaine Lawson came up to town the next time, she'd heard about this and just wanted to meet Sharon. And they had her over and just ended up forming this really tight bond that they've become kind of like family. And so then there's a short piece from Charmaine just talking about what the Fennells have meant to her as she's kind of navigated this extraordinary period of grief and mourning in her life.
Well, that's fantastic. I know that I got the opportunity to read them, and it was really touching that the bonds that they've made. And it's kind of heartbreaking that it's still playing out the way it is. There's civil cases ongoing that seem twisted, and I don't know. It's all just such a tragedy. But thank you for reminding us of this issue and sharing like I said, the softer story about the people, the bonding, and the positive response.
I think it's a testament to that. Even through horrific tragedies, there can be some beauty and some really wonderful things that spawn from them. So,
well, right on. How about you, Jen? What's going on this week in the arts and features beat?
Well, in the On the Table column this week, I am talking about a couple of things I'm looking forward to. I know you all want to get back out into public events. You all want to see each other and socialize and hug. That's fine. I'm very excited about a couple of restaurants that are opening up. So one of them is a boba tea shop. So we have boba tea in Humboldt. If you squint and you hunt, you can find boba tea. But we don't have like a boba cafe. And if you've been to like places in Southern California and probably in San Francisco, there are Taiwanese boba tea cafes, and they serve snacks and boba teas of infinite flavors, like boba tea, like Tony's does milkshakes. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Sarah Ipfy, she went and lived out of Humboldt in Southern California for a while and came back and was like, you guys, we need a boba tea cafe here, and we need it bad. And her sister, in fact, is Annie of Annie's Cambodian, Annie Chow. And so when next door neighbor, the Chalet House of Omelets, shut down for good because it was closed during COVID, and then the owner announced that they were selling the spot and whatnot, selling the restaurant, then Sarah was like keeping an eye out and jumped on it. So I think it was like, what was it? A Swiss themed shop or something, Swiss themed ice cream place. And then Chalet House of Omelets is now going to be Taiwanese boba and snacks. She's expecting to open around May. She and her husband, Henry Fee, are working hard, and they're DIYing most of it because it's really hard to get contractors right now. And building supplies and all the things involved in opening up a new business, depending, they're hoping to open in May. And that means not only that I will be eating most of my day's calories in little balls of tapioca starch, but also they're going to have things like Taiwanese popcorn chicken. And if you haven't had it, you might ask, what is Taiwanese popcorn chicken? Nothing was ever less good because it was Taiwanese. And we're having like a Taiwanese moment right now in Humboldt. I will get to that later. But it's like a marinated, it's like, why would I eat a chicken nugget when this is available? Marinated little morsels of chicken, fried, and then often sort of salt and pepper seasoned. Delightful. Nice. Just, yeah. So you're snacking, you're drinking boba tea, you're eating French fries. How do we not want that? So hopefully that's going to be in by May. Also adding to the Taiwanese moment that we're having here in Humboldt County, you may have noticed if you drove around or walked around the Arcata Plaza that where once Salt was, and don't freak out, Salt is moved. It's over on, what street is it?
It's
on 8th
Street.
8th. Yes, 8th and I, is it possible? Anyway, so it's moved with their fancy outdoor patio and everything. But now in the downstairs spot, there's going to be a place called Nori, and that is owned by a couple of partners. One of them being Jack Wu, he of Jack's Seafood, and also he's one of the owners in Bayfront. And yeah, and also if you go to Bayfront, and way back when you could eat at the counter, there's a fella named Joe Tan, and he's a sushi chef there and also a part owner in the nori business and in Bayfront. But he's kind of taking over, shaping the nori menu, and kind of he's going to be running and overseeing the sushi bar there. There is a sushi bar. It's not going to be the main thrust of the restaurant. I talked to him about what he's planning, and it's really fun. One of the things that they're going to do is Taiwanese teppan. And teppan is, you hear teppanyaki and you think of this big like Benihana situation with the juggling and the floor show.
Flipping the food.
Yeah. So it is in fact hot sizzling food, but no floor show. It is like these sort of iron plates or metal plates that are crazy, crazy hot and things sizzle on them.
Yeah.
And it's very popular as a street food in Taiwan. And Yi Wen, who, if you've gone to teppanyaki in Bayfront, you may have seen this very stern-looking fellow who is very comfortable juggling eggs. Anyway, so he's lovely, and he's going to be cooking, but in the back. I'm sorry, you won't see his face. And sending out these big plates of sauced and sizzling meats and vegetables and noodles and things like that. And it's got a different flavor profile from the teppanyaki that if you're used to the one at Bayfront. So it's going to be a fun change. Also fun, Joe Tan is a big sake enthusiast. Yes. I talked to him. He's actually from Malaysia, from a small mountain town near Kuala Lumpur. And he worked as a sushi chef in Tokyo for about 6 years or so. And we talked a little bit about being a foreign sushi chef. So in Japan, it's almost unheard of to see a Japanese woman making sushi. You're not going to see it at a restaurant counter. It just doesn't happen. But even more outlandish would be a foreigner. Anyone who's non-Japanese. And for Joe, because he's Malaysian, regardless of how good he was, regardless of how many years he worked there, he was never going to get to be the head sushi chef anywhere, not in Japan, because he's gaijin, meaning a foreigner. And so here he has a lot more opportunity to really branch out and to really grow. So as much as he loved Japan and working in Japan, here he has some options to, for example, be a part owner in a restaurant and make a menu and things like that. And so he's very excited to put together a menu that is going to maybe speak to some more traditional Japanese sushi and also satisfy the local craving for American sushi. And you're giggling. Why?
Because of all of our sauces.
Yes. What is it? I mean, Steph, we want our sushi, I guess, locally to a certain extent to be like an amusement park ride, right? With like a lot of spectacle, a lot of sauce, a lot of excitement going on. We have
shapes.
Right. And like things are deep fried, so yeah, there's going to be that too. But most of the menu is going to be the teppan. But Joe is very excited about the sake. He's a sake guy and a shochu guy. And so he's finally going to be able to cut loose and make a selection of at least 20 or so just sake. And then also shochu, which have you had shochu?
No.
Shochu is like, just don't drink it like it's going to be sake. Okay. It's like, it might come at you a little bit more like vodka than it does at sake, although it's distilled. But you can serve it on a beer and wine license. And they'll have cocktails and things like that. But it is a little stronger than sake, so slow your roll. But there's going to be a great selection of it, including nigori, which is nigori sake is that sort of cloudy, white-looking sake, and they often put a lot of flavors in it. And he's looking to experiment with that. He's like a kid in a candy store. And like I said, shochu cocktails. And also, if you like Korean soju, you like shochu. I guarantee it. But yeah, he's really excited about opening this new place. And, Jack is excited about it. You may have heard that Mazati's, that Jack has bought the Mazati space, or at least the Mazati space, and he has. And he's looking at potentially, it's a separate business, looking at potentially a nightclub or something, but it's still up in the air because pandemic, etc. So we'll see. Keep your eye out.
Right on. Lots of great stuff happening around the county, but even more, right on the plaza. So that's kind of cool. In
Should be
Arcata.
good.
Yeah, right on. Jennifer, thank you so much. As always, you're making me think about checking out new places like as soon as possible. So we put these two stories together. One is that we're getting vaccines out there. Two is that we got more places to go once we get out there. So an injection, I think I said it last week, a jab of hope.
Yes, more reasons to get vaccinated, like fried chicken.
Well, right on. That's just about going to do it for us this week. I wish we had more time. North Coast Journal's on newsstands now and available online all the time. Pick one up, stay informed, stay entertained, stay safe. Thad, Jennifer, thank you guys both so much, and we'll see you again next week.
See you next week.